Hello and welcome to another episode of the Common Man's Take on Sports with Kevin and
Quentin.
all right. Before we get the show started for today, I want to give a shout out to a local business here called Mac Daddy's Barbecue and Comfort Food. If you have never been down there to try their barbecue, Quentin, you should. It is really good. Um, they are located on Maryland Street at 1400 West Maryland Street. They do catering. They cater any event. You just have to call ahead and schedule for the event. They are open every Sunday 2 to 5:30 p.m. where you can walk in and walk out with a plate, but you can also call ahead and put an order in to pick up on Sunday. They have whole brisket for $120. They have pork butt for $30, slab of ribs for $25, 2 pounds of sausage for $20, a whole chicken for $15, a plate with 1 meat and 3 sides for $15, and a plate with 2 meats and 3 sides for $20. Good food for good prices. If you haven't been down there, please go down and give my man a try with his food down there at Mac Daddy's Barbecue and Comfort Food. They also have a Facebook page with the same name. You can go on their Facebook page and see some of their menu and the plates that they make and some of the food that they make. There's some pictures on there so you guys can take a look. Again, if you've never been down there, go down there. I promise if you haven't tried their food, it will change your life. Go down there and give them a try. All right, Quentin. So today, let's talk about the results from this past week of the NFL, Week 3. So we already talked about the Niners game on Thursday night. So let's look at some of these other results for this past Sunday and Monday. So let's start with the Colts and the Ravens. So we watched that game, and the Ravens were down about 7 players, some pretty important players, a couple offensive linemen and some defensive players. Obviously, they lost Dobbins for the season, and Justice Hill was out this week. But the Ravens still had opportunities to win that game. I was a little bit disappointed there that they let that go in the overtime to the Colts, but the Colts pulled that one out with a field goal in overtime. Seattle and Carolina, I knew that Seattle would win. However, I did not anticipate the offensive explosion by Carolina. They scored 27 points with Andy Dalton at the helm. He was 34 of 58 for 361 yards and 2 touchdowns. He probably needs to work with Bryce Young a little bit, because if Bryce Young could do that, man, they'd be cooking on all cylinders, man. I knew Seattle would pull that out, though. We talked earlier, a couple of podcasts ago, about Geno Smith and the fact that he's reinvented himself in Seattle. I still think he's doing an outstanding job down there in Seattle and looks really good. They got several good running backs down there between Charbonnet and Walker, and they obviously have DJ Metcalf and some Jackson Smith and Jigma, Tyler Lockett. They have some good receivers. So they got a good defense. So I knew Seattle would win that one. I just did not expect the Panthers to put up 27 points. That was a little surprising. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, with a backup quarterback, too, I did not expect that. 27 points. I think that's the most they've had in a game this season.
I believe you are correct with that assessment. I'm pretty sure that is true.
Yes, it is. 27 points. Wow.
Yeah, they only put up 10 against Atlanta, and how many against
17.
17. Yeah,
Against New Orleans.
New Orleans. So yeah. What were your thoughts on the Colts Ravens game?
My thoughts on the Colts Ravens game are, I do expect the Colts to play okay, but I didn't expect them to beat the Ravens. And they held them to 19 points. You know, that's not normal for a Ravens offense. And that's really not normal. And, I think that this was Garner Minshew was really good in this game. You know, he was 27, 44, 200 pass for 227 yards and 1 touchdown. So yeah, and he also had some help on the way. Zach Moss, 30 carries and with 122 yards. So yes, that's pretty good for the Colts. With the backup QB, but
Actually, I've always liked Garner Minshew. I thought he was good, serviceable quarterback. I was actually surprised that some of those quarterback needy teams didn't give him a shot. You know, he's always played decent. I never thought he was a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he's kind of like if he was in the right situation, he'd be a good story like Brock Purdy. He doesn't seem to turn the ball over, and he seems to make good decisions with it. So I've always liked him. I've always thought he was good QB.
yeah, I think the Jets should have probably reached out for him because right now in this game, I think they should have reached out for him because he looks really good. Especially against the Ravens defense, who's always pretty tough.
That is true, but they were missing several pieces off that defense.
Away,
Marlon Humphrey. I'd have to go back and look, but there were several key pieces missing out of that defense. So they were a little short-handed. I know that Ojabo got hurt during the game, so they were a bit short-handed there. Let's move on to the Falcons Lions game. Matt, I am telling you, the Lions are going to surprise people. That defense is good, and offense isn't too bad either. I think the Lions are really going to surprise some people this year. They're 2-1. They beat the Falcons 20-6. Jared Goff threw for 243 yards and 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Gibbs had 17 carries for 80 yards. And then Reynolds and Knight and St. Brown all split some carries for some yards. And you have Monroe St. Brown, who had 9 receptions for 102 yards. And Sam Laporta, who had 8 receptions for 84 yards and a touchdown. So you got some good stuff going on there for defense side of the ball.
Yeah,
you had go ahead.
Yeah, and they only held Bijan Robinson to 10 carries, 33 yards. You know, that just shows that you have good defense right there. That's really good defense. I mean, Bijan Robinson he's a great receiver, and I think that Lions defense just really held them. I mean, they only held him to 4 receptions for 27 yards. So I mean, that's just showing you that the Lions defense is really good.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Aiden Hutchinson got 2. They got 7 sacks overall. Aiden Hutchinson had 2. Jack Campbell had 1. Harris had 1. McNeil had 1. Barnes had 1. Jones had 1. So, yeah, that defense is looking really good.
Yeah.
Then you got Green Bay and New Orleans. Man, that was a thriller right there. Green Bay won it at the end with the walk-off field goal. They scored 18 straight points in the 4th quarter. They were scoreless for 3 quarters. It was literally 17-0. And neither team scored in the 3rd. It was 17-0 going into the 4th, and the Packers rattled off 18 straight unanswered points against New Orleans to come back and win that game. And so the legend of Jordan Love grows. in the absence of Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
He went 22 of 44 for 259 yards and 1 touchdown. And he did that without his best player.
Aaron Jones.
Yep, Aaron Jones is still out. So that Packers defense looked a little better today, or the other day. Rashawn Gary had 3 sacks in that game. 3 sacks, and Clark had 1. So Rashawn Gary can be a force. So he was definitely a force against the Saints. He was all over Derek Carr. So, yep. Houston beat Jacksonville. That one surprised me. 37-17. Mr. C.J. Stroud had his coming out party. 20 of 30 for 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. Although he did throw for 300 yards the previous game. That was their first win on the season. So Stroud looked pretty good in that game. He only missed 10 passes, so that's pretty good. Dale had 5 receptions for 145 yards and a touchdown, and then the rest were kind of spread out amongst the receivers.
Devin Singletary had 9 carries for 41 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Jacksonville. This is surprising to me too. Trevor Lawrence was 27-40 for 279 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick.
Yep. ETN had 19 attempts for 88 yards. So, yeah, I don't know. Man, I don't know what happened to them. I thought the Jaguars would be better than that. They are now 1-2.
Yeah.
I actually picked them to win that division.
Yeah, but right now it's looking like, let's see.
Looks like nobody wants to win that division right now.
Yeah, it looks like a tough race. Right now the Colts are leading that division.
With 2-1, everybody else is 1-2.
Yeah, I mean that's not surprising, but it is surprising for the Jaguars to be 1-2.
Chargers came back and beat Minnesota. That was a little surprising. I thought Minnesota would get their first win of the year. I did not think the Chargers would beat them, but they did. They won 28-24. Chargers had a little bit of a
struggle down in the
actually Minnesota was one struggling. Chargers scored in every quarter.
yeah, they at least scored. Yeah,
I don't know what's going down in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on there, but they're 0-3. I would not have picked them to be 0-3. New England beat the Jets 15-10. Man, I'm telling you, New York, you guys got to find a replacement for Zach Wilson. He's just not it.
Yeah, plus they already signed a veteran QB 3. Where did they?
Mac Jones was 15-29 for 201 yards and 1 touchdown. Elliott had a better rushing day. He had 16 attempts for 80 yards. Buffalo dismantled the Commanders, which I expected that. Buffalo is definitely better than the Washington Commanders.
Yeah, gosh, I mean, 28-3.
Yep, Josh Allen was 20-32 for 218 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick.
Or 37-3, sorry.
Cook ran for 98 yards on 15 attempts. Allen had 3 attempts for 46 yards and a touchdown, and then Latavius Murray, had 15 yards and 1 touchdown. So
yeah,
spread around a little bit. Stephon Diggs had 8 receptions for 111 yards, and Davis had 1 reception for 35 yards and a touchdown. And of course, the Bills defense did what the Bills defense does.
They held.
Poor Sam Howell had 4 picks in that game.
Oh yeah. Gosh.
Yep. Not going to win that way.
Yes.
And so, now let's talk about the game of the week. The Dolphins and the Broncos. What happened there? 70-20. The Dolphins absolutely went off. And Tua was 23 of 26. He only missed 3 passes, 23 of 26 for 309 yards and 4 touchdowns. No turnovers. And then A-Chain had 18 attempts for 203 yards and 2 touchdowns. Mozart had 82 yards and 3 touchdowns. Man. Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions for 157 yards and a touchdown. Chosen, 1 for 68 yards and a touchdown. Mozart, 7 for 60 yards and a touchdown. And then A-Chain had 4 receptions for 30 yards and 2 touchdowns. Man, what a day, what a day.
Yep.
Dolphins defense came away with 1 sack, 4 tackles for loss, and 1 pick, and 8 passes defensed. And then Russell Wilson had 306 yards with only 1 touchdown and 1 pick. He was 23 of 38. Yes. Their run game only mustered 69 yards on the ground. And then we all know what their defense did. Nothing. They allowed the Dolphins to score 70 points.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people are talking about how Sean Payton's going to turn the Broncos season around with Russell Wilson, what he did with Drew Brees. Right now, it doesn't look like it.
So you think this is a little bit of karma coming back to Mr. Sean Payton for talking so much trash about Nathaniel Hackett and how that was the worst coaching job ever? I'm pretty sure last year Nathaniel Hackett's team, when he was the coach of the Broncos, they never allowed 70 points. And I'm pretty sure that they didn't start 0-3.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they did not start.
A little bit of karma smacking him in the face, you think?
Yeah, so he's talking all this trash about Nathaniel Hackett. And look at him. He can't even lead the Broncos to 1 win. 1 win.
Then you got Cleveland and Tennessee. Cleveland won 27-3. I will say that I think Mr. Deshaun Watson played his most masterful game to date of this season. Was 27 of 33 for 289 yards and 2 touchdowns with no turnovers. The rushing game was kind of iffy, but they did have 1 rushing touchdown from Ford. Amari Cooper had 7 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown, and Ford had 2 for 33 yards and a touchdown. So Peoples-Jones had 3 for 49 yards, and they spread it out a little bit the rest of the way. That defense looks tough. Myles Garrett had 3.5 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. And then you had Wright with a sack, and then Okorondoko for a half a sack. So they had 5 sacks in all, 9 tackles for loss, and 4 passes defensed. Man, I'm telling you, Cleveland looks for real right now. They absolutely look for real. And that defense looks good. And they're 2-1. Now here's the other game that surprised me this week. The Cardinals and the Cowboys. But then again, is it really surprising? Isn't this what the Cowboys do every year? They start off hot. Everybody's going, oh yeah, the Cowboys are a favorite. We them boys. And then they lay an egg. And here's their egg against the Arizona Cardinals. 28-16.
Yeah, I mean, Joshua Dobbs he was 17 of 21. He passed for 189 yards and a touchdown. So, looks like the Cowboys' defense really didn't do anything.
Nope.
And James Conner had 14 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown. So
Dak Prescott was 25 of 40 for 249 yards and a touchdown and a pick. Pollard had 23 carries for 122 yards, but no touchdowns. Man, I don't know how they lost that game, but they did manage to lose it.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. But that's true Cowboys right there. True Cowboys fashion. They beat 2 teams they should beat, and then that third team that they should beat, they don't. And Arizona's 1-2, just for a little bit of perspective on that. 28-16.
When they entered the game, Cowboys were 2-0, while the Cardinals were 0-2.
Mm-hmm.
This is
true Cowboys play right here. Then you got the Bears and the Chiefs, and the Chiefs did what we knew the Chiefs would do, 41-10. The Justin Fields is still Justin Fields, 11 of 22 for 99 yards and a touchdown and a pick. He still hasn't proven that he can get the ball down the field by throwing it. He had 11 rushing attempts for 47 yards. Johnson had 8 for 38, and Herbert 7 for 31. DJ Moore had 3 receptions for 41 yards and the only touchdown. The rest of it was kind of spread around for 99 yards, and the defense just looked porous.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just because the Chiefs have a good offense. They should be able to hold the Chiefs to less than 30 points, at least less than 30 points.
Oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes was 24 of 33 for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns, and at some point in the second half, they let Blaine Gabbert get in the game, and he threw 3 of 5 for 31 yards, and finally turned the ball over twice, 2 picks. But Pacheco had 15 rushing attempts for 62 yards and a touchdown. Edwards-Helaire had 55 yards and a touchdown. Kelsey had 7 receptions for 69 yards and a touchdown. And McKinnon had 3 for 19 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Chiefs defense looked pretty solid. And then the night game was the Steelers and the Raiders. The Steelers skated away with that one, 23-18. So that makes the Steelers 2-1, the Raiders 1-2. Kenny Pickett was 16 of 28 for 235 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he looked pretty good in that game. Najee Harris had 65 yards, and Warren had 29. George Pickens had 44 receptions for 75 yards, and Austin III had 2 for 72 yards and a touchdown. And Freiermuth had 3 for 41 yards and a touchdown. And then the defense was okay, but 23-18, they allowed Mr. Garoppolo to throw for 324 yards and 2 touchdowns, but they also picked him off 3 times. Josh Jacobs had 62 yards rushing, so that was, I thought that the Steelers had a chance to win that game, and they did. So that is, they barely won, but they won. Let me see here. I want to look at something. Yeah. So we move on to the 2 Monday night games, Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. They were 25. Philadelphia won 25-11. I knew they would. They're 3-0. They're a good team. They're still my pick to come out of the NFC East. The Bengals finally got their win. They're now 1-2. They beat the Rams 19-16 on the field goal. Joe Burrow did play, despite the tightness in his calf. He was 26 of 49 for 259 yards and an interception. So he didn't have the greatest night, but he was still kind of hurt. Joe Mixon had 65 yards rushing with a touchdown. And Jamar Chase had 12 receptions for 141 yards, and the rest were kind of spread around. So, not a bad day for the Bengals. They skated out with a win on the field goal. So, not a bad week of football. A couple of surprises there. But overall, mostly what was expected. Is there anything else you want to add? Any other surprises for you or anything you want to talk about for the NFL?
There's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's what the Jets' future is now going to be in the season because they've just signed veteran free agent QB Trevor Siemian. He was released by the Bengals in the preseason. So, well, they got a new quarterback, so now, looks looks like the Jets might have a good season after all.
All right. We'll see what happens. I know he was in Dallas for a short time. Let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk about some WNBA action. So the Las Vegas won their first game against the Dallas
Wings.
But let's talk about that for a minute. Asia Wilson went off again for 34 points and 8 rebounds, and she was 15 of 21 from the floor. That's impressive. She got some help from Plum, who had 25 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds. She was 8 of 15 and 5 of 10. But man, Asia Wilson is tearing up these playoffs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that gets to me because I don't know why she didn't win MVP because Stewart won MVP.
Brianna Stewart. Yep.
Yeah.
That is a true statement.
So that's what I don't understand right now. Let's see.
That's how it goes sometimes. Add on to that, so the Liberty did lose their first game against the Suns. The Connecticut Sun beat them, and so they held Stewart to 19 points and 6 rebounds on 0 for 8 3-pointers and 7 of 25 shooting from the floor. So the Suns did a really good job on defense. Bonner had 20 points and 7 rebounds. Thomas had 8 points, 10 assists, and 7 rebounds. Hayes had 12, 2 assists, and 7 rebounds. Allen had 18 points and 7 rebounds. And Heidemann had 12 points, 4 assists, and 2 rebounds. So it was a group effort. They beat the Liberty. Both play again tonight if you get a chance. Check those games out. The Sun and Liberty play at 7, and the Wings and Aces play at 9. I'm telling you, if you don't get to watch the Sun and Liberty, man, watch the Las Vegas Aces and Dallas Wings. I'm telling you, Asia Wilson is a treat to watch. She is really good, and man, she's tough. Really tough. I know the Aces and Liberty were favorites to win. I think the Aces are definitely a favorite to beat the Dallas Wings, but I don't know about the Liberty now. The Connecticut Sun kind of came in and dismantled them a little bit. We'll see what happens tonight.
Yeah, I think the Connecticut Sun told him, "You're not going to win everything. No, it's not. You guys aren't just going to make it to the WNBA Finals like that."
All right. That's all I have for today's show. Do you have anything else you want to talk about before we end the show?
No, there's nothing else.
All right. That'll do it for today's show. We appreciate you guys for listening. Don't forget, we have a Facebook page under first name Kevin, second name Quentin. You'll see our logo on there, the Common Man's Take on Sports. If you guys want to drop some comments or maybe ideas of something you want us to talk about, please drop it in there on our Facebook page, or you can go to our website, kmisom.podbean.com. If you go on there, you can also leave comments on there, and you can also access the links to our show, to our different platforms that we post our show on. We're posted on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, FM, iHeartRadio. We're on all those. You can find our podcast there if you want to download it. If you do, please subscribe and like and leave us a rating and a review. You can go to our YouTube channel also. Check us out, our YouTube channel. I always post the episodes on our YouTube channel. And you can subscribe, like, and follow us there. Please follow us. Please subscribe and please hit that like button. We appreciate you guys listening. We hope you come back and listen again. That'll do it for today's show. And don't forget, if you get a chance and you're here locally, stop by Mac Daddy's Barbecue and Comfort Food on Sundays, 2:30 to 5. You won't regret it. Thank you, and that's it for today.